11th of August 2023. This news flash, I want to talk a bit about the Russian economy, because there are people that are making all sorts of statements about the Russian economy, where the reality is that there's very few people in the West that actually understands the Russian economy. And it's been a while since I've spoken about that Nazi stalker of mine. This is a message that he sent me on the 28th of July. Colleen, wanneer vertel jy ons bietjie hoe sterk is die Russiese ekonomie? Putin betaal nie sy soldate soos hy moet nie. BRICS belê nie in Rusland nie. Ek glo dit gaan bitter moeilik. Daai ekonomie gaan ineenstort lank voor die Weste. In short, he says that Putin is not paying his soldiers, BRICS is not investing in Russia, and that he predicts that the Russian economy will collapse long before the Western economies collapse. Now, let's start with this one. Russia has written off $23 billion in African debt. Russia is also participating in efforts to alleviate the debt burdens of African countries, the Russian leader noted at the first plenary session of the Russia-Africa Summit. Now, does that sound like an economy that's crashing? You can write off $23 billion of foreign debt. I don't think so. And if you have any idea in your mind that the Russians are stupid, just put that idea behind you. Then we get this. Germany suffers a recession as Russia's projected to show 1.5% growth. And that's from the IMF. The IMF says that Germany is the only member of the G7 group of leading economies to officially be in recession. Meanwhile, Russia, the country the G7 aim to harm with sanctions, will instead see a growth this year according to the IMF forecast. Now, that doesn't sound great for Germany. And if you take in consideration that's the biggest economy in Europe, you can understand that the European Union, the EU, is in deep shit because they got most of their funding for all their stunts from Germany. And then we get this. Moscow Exchange Index rose above 3,000 for the first time since February 2022. The Moscow Exchange Index increased by 0.44% to 3,001.13 according to trading data. The indicator rose above 3,000 points for the first time since February 2022. Since the second of the year, the Russian stock market has gained over 39% and continues to move upward, despite analysts warning of near-term corrections. Demand for shares remains relatively high. This prevents the Russian market from a deeper and longer correction, despite some players starting to lock in profits at new highs. And then we get this. Germany burdened with 2.4 trillion in debt, new all-time high. That's from a conservative Germany, financially conservative Germany. But the EU is bankrupting Germany. Ongoing spending to fight the energy crisis and the COVID pandemic has pushed Germany's public debt to a historic high of nearly $2.4 trillion. Euros. Final figures from the Federal Statistical Office released on Friday put the debt on the federal government, states, municipalities and social security, including all off-budget entities, at 2.368 trillion euros. On a per capita basis, that represents an increase in debt of 244 euro to 28,164 euro. These statistics only take into account liabilities to the non-public sector, such as banks and private companies, both at home and abroad. Of the total debt, 1.62.4 trillion is owed exclusively to the federal government, reflecting a 4.6% increase. In contrast, liabilities of the state fell by 5%. Among the states, Saarland once again had the highest per capita debt of 13,651 euros, followed by Schleswig-Holstein with 11,188 euros, and the lowest per capita debt were recorded as in previous years in Saxony with 1,352 euros and Bavaria 1,425 euros. Funding Zelensky is getting costly. And then we have this. Gas reserves in Russia. Russia holds 1,688 trillion cubic feet of proven gas reserves at 2017, ranking first in the world and accounting for about 24% of the world's total natural reserves. Russia has proven reserves equivalent to 102.3 times its annual consumption. This means it has about 102 years of gas left. That is a lot of gas. And then you have these graphs of the net exports of gas. You can see Russia, then the United States, and then the Middle East. But let's talk about something more interesting. There is a group of people that are making a hell of a noise about the fact that the ruble is getting weaker against the dollar. And they print the figures and say it went from 65 to 90 and shit like that. And that's all they say. But they don't tell you what the hell is really going on. If you go and you look at the money markets, you will see that the Russian ruble has weakened against all the other currencies of its major trading partners. About 2 months ago, Nabelina, she's in charge of the Russian central bank, said that the ruble was too strong and it makes it difficult for Russian exporters. And the central bank has decided that it's going to stop supporting the ruble. They had to do it after that major bulls up in February last year, and when the ruble went to something like 145 rubles to a dollar and things like that, because the West was planning to crash the ruble. But the central bank and the Russian economy itself quickly stabilized that craziness. And then the ruble strengthened to become very strong. Now, think about it like this. If $1 is 60 euros, or 60 ruble, that is a strong ruble, and you want to buy stuff from Russia, and say for instance, the commodity you're buying is costing 600 rubles. That meant you needed $10 to buy that thing. If the ruble goes to 90 against the dollar, and that thing for 6,000 rubles, you are now going to use not $10, you're only going to need $7.50. So it makes it easier for the Russian that wants to export. And what people tend to miss is that Russians deliberately allowed the ruble to weaken, because they're competing against America with certain commodities and against Europe with certain commodities. You must understand, Russia manufactures a lot of stuff, a hell of a lot of stuff, and they are now selling a lot of arms. And all these other countries that want to buy those arms, it makes it easier for them to buy if the ruble is weaker. So don't break out the branas and start boozing and say, yeah, the ruble is eating the dirt. That's a managed ruble. So don't misjudge reality by looking at someone telling you, $1 to 90 ruble, the ruble is turning into rubble. There's a plan behind it. And what the West, most commentators in the West never realized, is how strong the Russian manufacturing economy was. All of them thought, yeah, Russia is making its money on gas, and they never paid attention to the industrial capacity of Russia. And Russia has proven it. They've got massive industrial capacity. So for my pet Zotzi, you look at the things that I've discussed now, things doesn't look so great for your West. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support.